What is happening, Nerd Nation? Welcome to another episode, 9 Nerd Yards. Today, we're taking a break from the movies and TV shows, and we're breaking down something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is MMA. I'm a huge MMA fan. In fact, I used to do an MMA podcast called Loaded Joe's MMA. You guys can go look that up when you want to, but I've interviewed hundreds of fighters. Tonight's guest is no different. He's actually an alum of my old podcast, Loaded Joe's MMA. He's on the new season of The Ultimate Fighter. Without further ado, you know him, you love him. You're probably tuning in because of him. It's not because of us. It's Kurt Holobaugh. Where is Kurt at? Kurt, baby, you there?
Kurt. We may have Kurt.
Where is the man of the hour?
Getting into Kurt.
While we wait for Kurt, Kurt is currently on this season of The Ultimate Fighter. It is vets versus prospects, and he's a vet. He's been in the UFC. He had, 4 fights technically because he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. He fought Matt Bessette on the Contender Series. And then he had 3 more fights. And then recently has been with XFC. And, got picked on Michael Chandler's team as one of the vets. So as soon as he comes on, then we'll get started.
So when we're talking about like Michael Chandler's team,
yes,
that's against McGregor's team there, right?
That is against McGregor's team. So for those of you who don't watch Ultimate Fighter, or maybe some of this is new, so Team McGregor, he has picked his own fighters. Michael Chandler has picked his own fighters. All the fighters will fight until we ultimately get 2 fighters, because it's 2 different weight classes. Narrowed down, those guys will get a contract to the UFC and welcome back. And likely, if they fought really good in the house, they'll probably get a few fights in the UFC. I know, Gamer Heart. It's okay.
he was just with us live from Louisiana right now, so who knows what's going on.
Let me reach
on right here.
Let me reach back out to him.
Yeah, may need to send him the link again.
Yeah.
But yeah, as someone that's not very savvy on UFC, I may be tech savvy, but I'm not UFC savvy. But what exactly are we supposed to be expecting for the 31st season of UFC?
What are we supposed to be expecting? In what sense?
How far along are we in the season?
We're 3 weeks in. We've had 3 fights, so it's a fight every week for the first 8 weeks, and then it usually turns into 2 fights a week right after that. So but it all takes place in 30 days. Like, the fighters are there for 30 days, so they sort of stretch out the I believe it's 30 days. We'll check. I'll check with Kurt. But they stretch it out for like a whole season, which is usually 10 episodes or something like that.
Is this all done? Oh, here we go.
Well, ask him, Kurt, baby, what's happening, man?
Not too much, just finished up this episode 3 of tonight's Ultimate Fighter, and pumped up, man.
Pumped up kicks. Yeah. Kurt, bro, I have my first question here is, of the 2, right? Connor and Chandler. I know you kind of mentioned it, but did you really prefer being on Chandler's team? Did you feel like that was where he was going to be a coach that was going to be like, listen, I can bring out your strengths, or somebody you're going to gel with a little bit more?
100%. 100% from day one. You can ask my wife, my kids. The goal was to be on Chandler's team. I've never been a huge Conor McGregor fan. Nothing personal. It's not like I don't like the guy. I love to see him fight. He's such a big draw. Everybody loves to see him fight. But just as a coach aspect, and you can kind of see going on from, the first couple episodes of this year's Ultimate Fighter, Conor's just not that involved with his guys. He's not in the corner. He's walking around the ring being a whatever you would want to call it, a fanboy. yelling a bunch of crap from the outside of the cage, man. If you really want it that bad, get in your boy's corner.
Mm-hmm. You know, he did the same approach. Again, I'm a huge Connor fan. I mean, it's you being my friend. Like, you've seen me when he fights, I put his photo as my profile photo. Like, I'm a huge Connor fan. I just think, and this is something that I've seen in boxing, and I see it like in MMA sometimes. Just because you're a good fighter does not mean you make a great coach. And this is not me hating. Anybody can go back and watch when Connor coached against Uriah Faber's team. His fight. Remember the first like 4 or 5 fights? He didn't win. Like, I think he won like 2 fights. Like, he just wasn't. He was doing the same thing. Like, he was sort of being more on the outside, screaming things, while Uriah was there in his corner and coaching his fighters. So, I mean, watching that too, for sure, like, that probably gave you like, I don't know if I want to coach like that.
And that's one of the main reasons, because I knew Connor wouldn't be there every single practice. I knew he's going to skip a lot of stuff, and I knew he wouldn't be the one in my corner hollering instructions. And as you can kind of see, he's 0-3 right now, baby. You know, the Red Team Chandler, we're up 3-0 right now, in all dominant performances. So I mean, yeah, you're not getting to spend a whole bunch of time with these guys and coaching and prepping for fights, but still at the same time, even what Michael Chandler was able to give to us in this short time felt like it went so much more beyond just training, you know?
Right. How long were you guys in the house? Was it 30? Is it 30 days, or is it longer than that?
So we was actually in the house about 4.5 weeks. So they brought us out to Vegas, right? They bring you out to Vegas. You got to do your medicals, your blood works, your MRIs, all that good stuff. Um, so you actually stay in a hotel for almost 2 weeks before you even go into the house.
Whoa.
You know, and not only that, you're for what they did this season. I don't know what they did for past stuff, but you didn't even have a key to your room. Like, if you wanted to leave and go for a run or go to the workout room or something like that, you had to phone them in and be like, hey, can I go for a run, or can I use the workout room at 4 o'clock? And if it was open, they would probably say, yeah, let's go down at 4. Call us when you're done. We'll let you back in your room. You know,
What?
For sure. You're like, you don't have a key to your room, so if you go out, you're locked out.
You're locked out.
That's strict as hell.
You know, then for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they'll bring you breakfast every morning to your room. Whatever they was having for lunch, it was going to be a healthy and nutritious place where they'll call you and say, hey, today's lunch is greens and proteins. Look up the menu, tell us what you want, call it in, we'll have it ordered for you. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Whoa.
You know, greens, healthy.
Yeah.
For dinner, it's the same thing. They might say, hey, it's another good nutritious place, or it could be Applebee's. You know, look at Applebee's. Tell us what you want. You know, I know my boys Ro and Jason Knight, they was hitting them Applebee's wings and all kind of stuff every night. So. But it's cool. So, yeah.
I was gonna say that it's right. Like, the team that you have, bro, super legit. Like, Cody Gibson, Brad Katona, you, Austin Hubbard, was it Roosevelt Roberts, Jason Knight, bro, like, bro.
I mean, if you can't get any more UFC vet than those guys, you know?
Yeah. Incredible. Was there anybody on the team that you were like, dang, this is dope, I've wanted to work with you, or you found out working with them, you're like, I really enjoyed getting some working with this person?
Well, a couple of the guys, of course, I've seen Austin fight many times in the UFC, so I already knew who Austin was. Jason Knight, he might live an hour and a half from me. We was actually supposed to fight way back in like 2013 on a local promotion here before either one of us got to the UFC. So, I would have and we always talk. Every time we see each other, we're cool. We talk, man. So I knew I would have sort of a friend in the house. Roosevelt Roberts, I actually had a fight offer for Roosevelt in Eagle like last year. So I was like, yeah, this could get interesting. Turns out I'm happy I never fought Roe because Roe's such a dog, man. And that would
Uh-huh.
have been such a tough fight. But it was just cool, being around all those guys and such high level guys and getting to work with those guys and really bonding with those guys. Because really, when you're in that house, you have nothing. You don't have your family. You don't have phone. You don't have anything to talk to the outside world. All you have is what's in that house,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
those guys.
It's like jury
And it was
duty or
funny
some shit.
because, yeah,
Yeah.
it was funny. We was all four roommates. It was
Oh,
me and
okay.
Jason on one side in bunk beds, and it was Roosevelt Roberts and Austin Hubbard on one side in bunk beds. So you had the four Team Chandler lightweights all bunking together.
That's dope, man. That's dope. Um, what was so let's start. I guess let's start from the beginning before I get carried away with all these questions. All right, so you get into the house, and I know they've been doing this sometimes, but this was one of the seasons where they sort of already had the fighters picked. They didn't have to actually you didn't actually have to train, and they're like, okay, I want to pick this guy. They'd already picked y'all, correct?
Yeah, well, pretty much. Now
Okay.
going back to that hotel when we was in the hotels or the hotel in Vegas for about I think it was like 11 or 12 days
Okay.
before we went to the house. There was supposed to be what 8 lightweights, 8
Hmm.
bantamweights. There was a lot more guys there than that. So when you start adding things up, you're like, yep, that's a lot more lightweight. So a lot of guys had questions. We didn't know if we was going to be fighting to get into the house. We didn't know if
Right.
we was going to alternate. We didn't know if they was going to cut us at the last second. So honestly, nobody told anybody anything, and they wouldn't really let you around the fighters to really talk. Now, every now and then, you might go to a workout room and you might have a fighter in a different weight class or something like that. And that's what it seemed like. It seemed like every time I seen a fighter and was able to go to the workout rooms, it
Uh-huh.
was with a bantamweight or something like that. And some of the guys got talking and they was like, "Yeah, man, there's a lot more than just 16 guys here. There's gonna be some guys getting cut or something because I know
Whoa.
this guy's there, this guy's here, this guy's here." So they're like, and I heard some of them were alternates. Some of them know they're alternates. Some of them don't know they're alternates. So then you're like, man, well, I
What the
might
hell
get
am
cut.
I? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you don't know. So which everything turned out good for me.
Right.
I was one of the selected ones. They were bringing it to the house. Me, Jason Knight, Roosevelt Roberts, Austin Hubbard. That was the four. But like I said, there was a lot more there. Um,
Interesting.
so yeah,
Okay. So they select somehow they select through the we'll say plethora of other lightweights. They're like, okay, these are the ones we want. This is who we're bringing into the house. So let's talk through because we're this week was week 3. So let's recap week 1 and week 2 already. Um, they line up they get all the fighters, they do the coin flip, whatever, and then they start matching, or well, after y'all guys train, then they start matching everybody up. Um, when they announced all the fights, because they make it seem like they do it right, like on a week by week basis, and they stretch out the Ultimate Fighter for like 12 weeks or something like that. Obviously, y'all are not there for 12 weeks. So they're condensing a lot of everything that happened all at once, right? Like the weigh-ins, the lineup, uh, did everybody have to cut all the lightweights or everybody was fighting the first week? Like everybody has to cut weight all at the same time, right?
pretty much. So the way it worked, normally in the past Ultimate Fighters, the fighters show up. The coach is walking the room. Dana walks into the room. And then, they flip the coin and hey, whoever wins the coin toss gets first pick. So they start picking guys. Yeah, they probably do a lot of research on some of the guys as well as Chandler and Connor did too. So,
Right.
but the way this was, you know, thought out is okay. So we got of course, the UFC guys, the guys that's fought in the UFC before, and then we got the guys, the prospects, the guys that haven't fought in the UFC before.
Right.
So we're like, or Dana was like, so you're gonna pick by groups. So we're gonna do the coin toss. So they do the coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
Connor wins the toss. Um, so then Connor has the choice to pick the 155 pro vets, UFC vets, or prospects, or he could take the
Mm-hmm.
35 UFC vets or prospects. Well,
Right.
funny story is Connor showed up, and you hear a lot about this. Connor showed up with all these guys demanding they'd be on the show. It was really only one guy. He showed up with his guy. who's
Uh-huh.
been waiting for a long time, Lee Hammond, right?
Yeah.
Lightweight
Yeah. He's on the
prospect.
show. Yeah.
So that's the guy he shows up with, and I don't know actually who they sent home. I don't know if this was a planned thing, if they already knew Lee was coming. Who knows? But of course, Connor wins the toss. So who does he take? He takes
Lee.
the 155 prospects, Lee Hammond and that
Mm-hmm.
group. So
Mm-hmm.
then the UFC 155 vets automatically go to Michael Chandler.
Right.
But being that Connor won the toss and got the first pick, Chandler now gets the next pick. So he gets to pick the UFC vets or for 35, or he picks the prospects for 135. So of
Right.
course he takes all UFC prospects. So now you got all UFC prospects versus
Um,
all up and comers. So it really couldn't have worked out any better,
yeah.
scheme wise, I guess you could
Right.
say. Um, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted prospects,
Too.
right?
Yeah.
So that's how they do the lineups. And number one fights four, number two fights three. So,
Right.
of Connor picks the prospects because of Lee Hammond. So there he goes. Lee Hammond gets that number one ranking. So number four fights number one. I've fighting Lee Hammond, and and then all the rest of the fights fall out like they have. So
Yes. Wow. Yeah. It was such a process. I'll be honest with you. When Dana was like explaining the coin toss and how it works, I'm like, bro, this is so confusing. Like, why? Like,
yeah,
Right.
and
It's
then
like
when,
not drawing straws or anything,
yeah,
right?
it was funky. But then when Connor picked, I was just like, oh, okay. So then that other team. So when that happens, that everybody, how far into your stay in the
You're right,
house?
Terry. I am very confused
He's very
right
confused.
now.
Nine's very confused. It's okay. We're
I
schooling
do
him.
have just like one question.
Yeah.
It feels
yep.
like it's a big mix between like almost reality TV and the UFC format, which almost seems like a recipe for disaster. How do you guys like balance that through like all of
I
that
mean, that's what it
energy?
is.
You know what I mean?
It is a reality TV show, right? So, I mean, this show has been running for this is the 31st season, so very successful. But yeah,
Right.
it is definitely a reality TV show. There's cameras in your face 24/7. You wear a microphone 24/7. But kind of like how I explained it. Um, it's a little bit different than past seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the teams are picked and the matchups are made. So yeah, that was probably the first day we went into the house. They picked
Okay.
teams.
Yeah.
Second day, I want to say we might have did matchmaking. Actually, second and third day. So the second day you pick teams. Third day we pick matches, and then like the next week, which was only like 5 or 6 days, I think you had whoever was fighting the first four fights had to
Mm-hmm.
make weight and fight within that first week.
Whoa. Okay. That was going to be my question is how soon being in the house did you have to fight? You can't say yet because you haven't fought yet, but the first fights happened, you said like within the week?
First week, yeah. A bunch of
Woo.
fights happened first week. And I mean, it's already kind of laid out. They're telling you kind of in the Ultimate Fighter, but of course, you already know there's 12 weeks of Ultimate Fighter, right?
Right.
But and if you do the math, there's 12 fights that happen, but there's only 6 weeks in the house or a little bit less. So they got to kind of cram all that in.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And to answer Terry's question, um, they do about 2 seasons a year. They started in 2005, I believe, if I remember correct. Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, I think that was
Okay, because I
2005.
was wondering how they're on season 30 right now.
They started
31.
like, yeah, they just been doing 2 seasons a year since then.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then they
Yeah.
took a little break, right around that
Hmm.
COVID area. They took a little break. They didn't do an Ultimate Fighter season for a while. I don't know if the ratings were dropping a little bit. I know they did a few that were like overseas that really wasn't even on national TV here. They did a couple, and then they started doing the comebacks after they built the Apex and stuff like that. I think they did two shows so far, the Ultimate
Right.
Fighter, whatever, and then they did another one, which was last season. That was the Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes,
Amanda
and
Nunes.
then
Yeah.
now we're
Um,
here on this.
We got someone saying, you know what y'all in here talking about. We kind of like botched the interview or like the introduction, I guess, a little bit. So I just want to say from 9 Nerd Yards, can you just let CC Baby know who you are, what we're talking about tonight, Mr.
So
Kurt?
my name is Kurt Holobaugh. I've been a professional fighter since 2011. I've made it to the UFC on two different occasions. My first fight in the UFC was in 2013. I made it back to the UFC in 2018. And after getting released both times from the UFC, I got a phone call to be on this season of The Ultimate Fighter, which is a reality TV show that the UFC does. And 16 guys go into a house, and on this season, there's two different weight classes. So the winner of each the winner of each weight class receives a UFC contract. And normally it's a six-figure contract. So, we're fighting for a lot of money here. We're fighting for a good opportunity to be back in the UFC and get a good contract.
That's right.
That's what's
That's
up.
right.
That's what's
I
up.
love it. So that was the first week we had Roosevelt Roberts. He fought, and then the second week in the house, I love that I love it, and I hate that they do this where they're like, oh, guys are in the house, and there might be some drama between people, and it always feels like it's more amplified. From your opinion so far, from your perspective, was there really any tension with any of the guys, or was it more chilled than they made it seem on TV?
Uh, in our with all the guys that were in the house on my season, it's pretty.
Okay.
You got guys that lose and are out of the tournament style format for the Ultimate Fighter, right? So they lost the fight, they're out, so they can just enjoy themselves. So there's always liquor. You can have whatever you want in the house. So there's guys, start drinking, really hard on past seasons. You know, um, so there's always that type of stuff. But for
Oh,
the most part,
super.
man, we was in the house with a really good group of guys. Everybody in the
That's
house is
solid.
super professional. So um, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's solid, bro.
We have
Nine, what you think?
CC Baby really leaning into the reality TV aspect of the show, saying, I want to be in a house with
Or
16
six.
guys. Okay, CC Baby.
Thanks, CC baby.
But
I
here's the
mean,
thing,
Kurt's got
not
a wife and kids, so it probably got a little bit frustrating being separated from that family union.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Not only are you in that house with 16 other guys, you have no cell phone. You cannot call anybody. You have no contact to the outside world, so you don't know what's going on. You
Bro.
know, you're in a house, you're getting shuttled back and forth every day to the training center to train. You get to eat whatever you want to eat. You make your list, and whatever you put on your list for food, they'll bring it to you. You cook it, you eat it, you hang out with the guys. That's it. You don't talk to
Wow.
family for 6 weeks.
It's
So
insane.
it,
Yeah.
it, it can get, man, if you're not mentally prepared for that, it can be rough.
Yeah. Factuals. Uh man, I think that's a thing that people don't think about, right? Because like, when was this? Okay, so when did y'all film this?
Oh,
Oh, shoot. I want to
we
say
got another little fan here, too.
early,
So it looks
late
like
February,
Mr. Cute.
early March. I want to say at the end of February, all the way through March,
Okay.
something like that. If I'm not going crazy,
No, you might have been. You were in the house separated from everything going on, man.
that's true.
But yeah. Okay, so we're in the house. There's not everybody's pretty chill. And then that week, Cody Gibson gets the win, which was dope. I mean, Cody got popped. Like, I think people forget about. I think here's the thing. Given that there's a whole bunch of like vets, right? I think people forgot. Like they're like, oh, I forgot. Watching Jason Knight fight. I forgot watching you fight. I forgot watching Cody Gibson fight or anybody like that. So when you see him, you're like, oh, that's right. They're really good, and they this fool will knock out somebody in an instant.
Yeah, man. And look, Cody's one of those guys that I think he made his debut back in like 2014 in the UFC, and he
Yeah,
fought Aljamain Sterling, who is the current
yeah,
champion now. He fought a lot of good guys, and not only that, even on the outside of the UFC, he was fighting top guys like John Dodson, Ray Borg, who look both title contenders, and he's
right.
winning some of those fights. So he's definitely a true veteran of the game, true UFC veteran, not a guy to sleep on. And as you see in his fight with Mondo, man, he's game as they come.
Yeah, bro. First round TKO. Like, oh my! And it's always impressive that when it happens, I think on the show, because it's like I feel like there's a part of like tension that you guys have, and you're like, I just need to get this out. Like, and especially too, I remember Roy Nelson saying this back on like Ultimate Fighter season 10. Like, he's like, I'm looking for the knockout in the first round, so that way I don't take any damage, and like I can just move on to the next fight with the least amount of like time in the ring and damage, and we could just move on. And how simple of a concept is that, right? Like, wouldn't it be nice for everybody to do that? Because it always seems like there's either like a first round TKO or submission, or like it's a wild fight, which brings us to tonight. Like that was a tough fight, bro.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you want to go back and you want to look at how you would like it to play out. You go back and look at Roosevelt Roberts' fight against Nate. That's if you're in a tournament style, that's how you want it to play out. Even Cody Gibson and Mondo, you get the win in the first round. You don't take any damage. You're not injured. You're able to turn right back around, not have to nurse any injuries, and jump right back into the next fight. But yeah, tonight's fight, man, it was went the distance. In these first couple fights, they're only 2 round fights. So, if you
Right.
win both rounds, fight's over. And Austin had a great fight. He showed why he's a veteran and why he is where he is because he had that patience in some of those tough times. It looked like at the beginning of the fight, just
Right.
that good patience, just to wait and explode when it was his time.
Facts. Facts. Yeah, man. It's always tough to see that because like not only is the other fighter getting beat for 2 rounds, but like, bro, that's a lot of damage. And then you have to fight 2 more times potentially after that, like, and you just went to war. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
it's
can
exhausting.
do it.
It just seems exhausting.
I'd need a sensu bean after that.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, for sure. Because
And
when you stop and think about it, when fights are scheduled out, yeah, you got some guys that'll take a short notice fight on, a couple of days, but
right,
that's still a fun fight. Like now
right.
that all like yeah, he went to a decision, he's got to turn right back around and fight probably within, you know, 10, 12 days, something like that. So,
And
and
I was gonna say that on top of cutting weight, the weight
yep,
cuts, bruh,
yeah,
bruh, damage on damage, bro.
yep, for sure. That kind of brings to our next episode. You know that the Teamer and Trevor's going to fight in the next episode. And right now, there's a little bit of weight controversy because both guys
Right,
made weight already. And
right.
then now you see Teamer on the phone saying, "Hey, we need to do this at a catch weight. My guy already made weight. Teamer's a pretty decent sized bantamweight. So and let's just say one of the two wins, they got to turn right back around and make weight again. So that
Again,
would be like 3 times making weight if you got to make your actual weight. So right now they're in the midst of talking about being a catch weight, and what that means is they would do a weight that's like in between, right?
hmm,
So of course they probably both walk around somewhere about. Well, I know Teamer walks around a little over 150, maybe
okay,
more.
that's
Um,
thick.
and you can hear Chandler saying he wants to be 145, and then you can hear Trevor's team saying, "Hey, I think we should make the initial weight," which is
Right.
saying that Trevor would be able to make the weight much easier than Teamer would.
Then the other dude, yeah.
So, um, so yeah, man, next episode we'll see what weight they
Well,
actually fight at. See if they have to cut all that weight again, and You finally get to see those guys scrap.
For sure, man. When that happens, you want to come and recap all the action and let us know what inside happened with that?
Absolutely, man. I'll be more than happy to.
My man, I love it. Kurt, was there anything that happened so far in these first 3 episodes that you're like, oh, they didn't show this on TV, but this happened?
Not yet. There was a
Okay.
few things that happened, but these first 3 episodes, was kind of what they showed. Like I said, they're kind of going in order of the fights that was announced when Dana picked the fights and called the guys up one at a time, and you can see the layout that they put out. That the fights, of course, they skipped Trevor and Teamer and moved
Right.
on to Austin or whatever, and then next week they're going to go back to Trevor and Teamer, and then they're going to go back in regular order, um,
Okay.
which would be I think, Carlos and Brad, and then you'll get me and Lee. And it looks like our fight's going to fall out if they don't do any kind of pauses or skip, any episodes. It looks like our fight with me and Lee will be on July 4th.
Woo,
So
woo.
no need to go buy fireworks. You're already going to have them.
I love it, man. Kurt, I want to ask you this question before we start to wrap this up. When they matched you with Lee, given that was sort of Connor sort of finagled him on the show, as we found out tonight, like, were you like, bruh, I'm about to take you out. Like, you don't even belong here. You're not even supposed to be here. Watch me do my thing.
No, 100%. And that was kind of like, you got to know if you're Connor's guy and you're that handpicked guy,
Right.
everybody wants to fight you. That was the first thing Roosevelt Roberts. He like, I want Connor boy ass right now. I want him first.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and that's actually I want to say, and you can hear Chandler talk about it a little bit on the first 3 episodes. They were trying to get that matchup with Roe because Roe come out and said, "Hey, I want Connor boy right now. I want
Right.
Connor's boy. Match me up with him." So I feel like they tried to do that in the order that would have got Connor's boy, would have got Lee, but didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Yeah.
Roe got Nate, I got Lee, so I was 100% fine with it. I wanted to fight Lee the very first day. I'm like, look, man, let's make it happen. Because
You're
one of the
saying
main things,
you're saying Lee. Who exactly is Lee?
Lee Hammond.
Lee. So he was one of the guys that Connor brought. He's been training with Connor since he was a kid.
Oh, wow.
I'm not exactly sure on his age. I want to say he's mid-20s. He's had probably 20 plus amateur fights. He was I think the UMF or it's that amateur fight series that the UFC puts on
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
fighters. I want to say he's a 2-time world champion for them as an amateur.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
he fought Bellator before. His record's 5-0, so he's undefeated as a professional lightweight. And rightfully so. I think he was definitely worthy of being on that show for sure. He was a top up and coming prospect, and of course, you got Connor on the show. He's going to
Right.
bring his guy, and there you got Lee Hammond on the show, guy from Dublin, Ireland, trains at SBG with Conor McGregor, and even in Conor McGregor's documentary on Netflix that he came out with. So he's been with Conor for a long time now,
Wow.
and yeah,
Oh,
we got matched up, and that's the guy that I drew first.
Kurt, why you get so gangster when I brought up Lee, bro? You was ready to go to war right now.
Man, I was a stare down, but it's all about that guy that's in front of me. When that guy's in front of me, man, especially if I don't know who he is, or in this situation where, like, right now, we didn't know, we really hadn't got to know any of these guys yet during the fight picks and the face off. As
Right.
we went on in the house, you got to know guys, and you're like, man, this is a super cool guy, man. I hate that I got to fight this guy or whatever, but oh well, I guess
Oh,
it's part of the show, it's part of the show.
it comes with the
But
territory, as what Floyd Mayweather says, and I love that.
and I wanted to fight Lee first for the main
Okay.
reason is so I didn't have to wait and have to diet, for because I've already been dieting for I don't know how long, getting on the show, getting my weight down, and then I would have liked to fight right then and there in that first week. That way I would have a little bit, maybe eat a little bit, drink a little bit, do whatever, and then turn back around and fight if I would have won for the next fight, if that's how
Right.
it played out. So
What
that was
would
my
you say
plan.
is your like routine for cutting? Like when you're like, okay, I need to get down real quick. What do you do?
Stop drinking beer. Try to limit myself on energy drinks because I'm a big
Right.
energy drink man. I wake up in the morning, gotta have a rock
What's
star, gotta have a monster.
Oh, oh.
okay?
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that's my two go-tos. I'll drink anything though. You give me a Red Bull, I'll drink it. It doesn't matter. Full throttle. I can ghost, rain,
Because
pain.
you're 5'11". It says dropping down to like 145, 148 almost.
I have a lot of fights at 145 pounds in the past. So this season,
Okay.
the Ultimate Fighters all at
He's
155 pounds.
55.
Okay.
So yeah,
I mean,
I'm
still,
not
man,
cutting it.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Kurt, what do you usually walk around at, my dude?
So I was actually at 186 the other day, which is pretty heavy for me. I don't think it's
Yeah.
186, but man, I'm just living life. But normally I'm
Yeah,
walking
man.
around 75.
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
Also, for those that don't know, Kurt, and we talked about this beforehand, and I think this is a good way to sort of round the show out. For people that don't really know your journey, again, you mentioned you were in UFC and then you were out. There was a part of time, right, where like you almost were not going to fight anymore. Was that true?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's ultimate goal in fighting is to make it to the UFC, right?
Yeah.
So, I got that big break. I made it to the UFC back in 2013. Didn't last long. I dropped my very first fight in the UFC to Steven Siler, and very close fight, very competitive fight. But the UFC chose to release me from my contract, right? So,
Right.
that means you don't have a job with the UFC no more. You can fight wherever you want. So, of course, I have to go back on the local scene, and I have to win some fights because the UFC will tell you anytime they cut you, they're like, go back, you win some fights, we might bring you back.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, cool. And I go out, I win some fights. I don't get that phone call. So then I actually signed with a promotion called Titan FC at the time. They
Mm-hmm.
were doing big shows. They were live on CBS Sports Network, so it's a pretty big platform. And I started fighting for Titan. And
Right.
like I said, national TV, getting some exposure. I wound up winning a world title with them.
Right.
Supposed to go back to the UFC, don't get the call again. So I'm like, man. And then my contract was up with them. I signed a fight in Chechnya, Russia. So I go all the way to Russia, fight in a tournament in Russia. Wind up losing the
Man,
decision out there to a very, very tough guy that was a Bellator. I want to say he was a tournament champion. I don't know his first name, but we call him Frodo Cosvalaya.
Frodo.
And
Yeah.
dude,
does it
tough dude.
is it like how I'm imagining it when you're like flying over to Russia and you land and everything and you're getting ready to fly? Is it like how I'm imagining it? Like you know how I'm imagining it, right? Like some rocky shit, or is it some what are we
Is it more
talking about
chill?
here? Yeah.
Every bit of what you would think of. It was rough. I ain't gonna lie. I told myself I ain't never going back there again. It was rough,
Damn.
right?
That's
I mean,
crazy.
it wasn't as far as like the Rockies and all the snow and stuff like that. It was just, man, Checheny's not a very good place in the world. Like,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
killers over there, man. You don't want to wander too far away from your hotel room because you might not make it back.
Damn.
My coach almost got a shot.
What?
True story. Yeah.
Tell me this. What happened, Kurt?
Because we were just looking for the sauna, man. We had like 2 nights before the fight. We finally made it to Chechnya, and there's guards walking around with AK-47s on their hip. So we're looking for a
Bro.
sauna. Nobody speak English. My coach is Brazilian, so he barely speak English. And we go and we're looking for the sauna. They all speak Russian. So my
Yeah.
coach Raphael, who is Brazilian, he goes over because the people at the hotel said, yeah, yeah, we think they were saying it was next door. So at the venue, because we're right next door to the venue. So we go over to the venue, and there's two guards outside, and Raphael is like, we want to use the sauna, and they're shaking their head, they're talking, Russian, and
Right.
Raphael's like, we're fighters, and boy, as soon as he put that hand gesture up, like he wanted to fight, they cocked the gun.
Oh
What?
no.
What?
I'm like, Raphael, put your
Yeah.
hands down. You cannot put your hands in the air. What are you thinking? So Raphael said, sorry, Willie. So yeah, man, we all that
Wow.
and got at it. True story.
um,
That's insane, Kurt.
we got another good question here for you. And
Yeah.
that is, if you weren't a fighter, what would you want to be doing?
Man, I really don't know. Professional wise, like being able to be some sort of superstar, I don't know what would be out there for me. You know, if I wasn't a fighter, I'd probably be still installing security cameras and fire alarms. That was my job before I went full time into owning a gym and fighting professionally.
Wow.
So, but if I had a choice of anything I could do, I'd probably want to play like NFL football or something like that. Be a professional athlete.
Oh,
Nice.
what position?
Oh man, when I was in high school, I played defensive back and receiver.
Okay.
And my son actually plays around the same thing, but he'll rotate the linebacker a lot. But man, I like the linebacker spot. Give
Ooh.
me
Yeah.
a running back spot or a linebacker.
Okay.
Wow.
I'll put you on the running back. I don't know if with the linebacker, we're gonna need you to put on so much more weight. But
Yeah, but no, for
I
sure.
need you.
I wouldn't be a linebacker in the NFL. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Some of the boys are
Trust,
Anytime we're
trust me.
heavy.
anytime we're playing at the beach, I'm gonna get you as the linebacker for sure.
I love it.
Anytime.
Kurt, last question here, and then we'll round you out of here. Um, somebody thinks you should have fought the Russian guards. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no, baby.
I
I
didn't want
never actually aimed towards us.
I don't want any
Or
part of
anything.
Kurt.
I don't. Yeah, like please do not. I
Me
want
and Kurt
Kurt
are.
on my team.
He's my friend. Wait a
My
minute.
team. He's on my team. It's me and Kurt versus Blake, actually.
No, no, bro. He's a professional fighter. I want nothing to do with it. But yeah, to go back to the story though, you have your stint in the UFC, have a few more fights in XFC, because the last time you fought was in 2021, and
right. So
there, yeah, talk about that
yeah,
gap.
so I'm in Titan. I'm trying to make my way back to the UFC. I had the fight in Russia. I dropped the fight. So I'm like, man, at this time, I don't kind of know the direction I want to go. I'm in the middle of changing managements, and at this time, I don't even have a manager. But I hit Titan back up. Uh, Jeff Aronson and Lex McMahon. I'm saying, hey, do you guys want to re-sign me to another contract? Because you didn't re-sign me last time. I went to Russia and freaking lost the decision. And they're like,
Right.
yeah, you should have said something. We would have re-signed you immediately. So I'm like, all right, cool. Give me another contract. So yeah, they signed me to another contract. I go up a weight class because after the Russia experience, I didn't want to cut to 45 anymore. Um, and I start rounding out some fights at 55 against some pretty tough guys. The last one was against Jay Z Cavalcanti, who is a
Yeah.
legend of the um, super tough guy, and I win the fight. Well, I wind up signing with a new management, Sucker Punch Entertainment, and so they're like, "All right, man, look, I got you a spot on the Contender Series, first ever Contender Series,
Right.
but at 145 pounds, do you think you still make the weight?" I'm like,
Whew.
"Screw it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm in for it." So, yeah, make it. I headlined the very first Contender Series ever, Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series.
Hmm.
Um, I fight
That
a
was
guy
when
named
that
Yep.
was when Uriah and Snoop Dogg were the commentators on that season.
Yep. It was called the Spit
Jiraiya and
Cast.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uriah Faber and Snoop Dogg were the commentators on the first season, and like
That's funny.
Snoop would be blowing, bro, would be smoking in while
In the
commentating, bro,
yeah,
in his booth.
yeah.
Yeah, like for real, it was wild. They
And
should have
sipping on,
kept Snoop. What's that?
and sipping on gin and juice.
Yeah.
Him and
Is
Uriah
this
both.
on the Contender?
The Contender
Yeah.
Series, Dana White's Contender
So
Series. Yeah.
you
Ah,
could have listened
I
to it.
see.
You could have listened to it in what they called the Snoop Cast, which was Uriah Faber and Snoop Dogg, or you could have listened to it in the regular commentary.
The regular
You know,
commentary. Yeah.
Is this
yeah,
it
of
right here?
course.
Is this
Yes, this is it right here. This is them.
and you weren't
Yeah.
lying about the gin and juice either.
No, I
That's
told
Yeah.
you they both was introduced and called the fights, man. And you have to go back and listen to them call my fight. It's actually some pretty cool stuff and funny stuff, especially if you're a fan of Snoop Dogg. But I wind up fighting a guy named Matt Bassett, winning by
Right.
first round knockout, and
nice.
UFC signed me to a new contract right there. So, um, went back to the UFC, fought 3 fights, went through a Shark Tank, man, fought a lot of tough guys, wind up losing the 3 fights, got released again. So at this time, I'm like, hopefully I can go to another organization that pays me some good money because I ain't never going to go back to UFC. There's not a lot of times guys make it back 2 times,
Twice.
much less
Yeah.
3 times.
Right.
I don't know if anybody's
Okay.
ever made it back 3 times. I've actually thought about that and see if I can figure that out. But I do. I signed with an organization called XFC, and at the time, they're another organization similar to Titan. They were an old
Mhm.
organization rebranding, and they were coming back to NBC Sports Network. So there's going to be something else on national TV. And this was
Nice.
like right during that COVID era. So there's guys, organizations getting back up and running, and you're going through all these COVID protocols and stuff like that. And their first fight that I got on the card, and it's a tournament style format, right? So I entered the tournament. There's a bunch of guys in the tournament, and my first fight is a guy named Zero Boyer, and a Dutch kickboxer from Aruba. He's like 18 and
Oh,
5, so super high level experienced guy.
right.
And I drew him in the first round. Their first show was in Atlanta, Georgia. So we go up there, man. They really do a good job with the show. They treat us very, very good. Nice hotel, feeding us good, everything you can imagine, just as good as UFC. We're doing press conference. They're giving us like
Nice.
shares of the company at the
What?
time. So I'm like, this is cool. Like, I'm fine here. You're not making UFC money, but you're making some good money.
Yeah.
And I think I knocked the guy out in like 18 seconds.
Yes.
Move on to the next round.
I was wondering about like okay,
20,
okay.
26. It says 26 seconds, first round.
Yeah, so
Wow.
26 seconds. I move on to the next round. So I'm like, all right, cool. So, a couple months later, they get the show rolling again. I was supposed to fight a guy that won that night named Scott Hudson. Well, he got an injury and he withdrew. So they found a replacement, a guy named Jose Verdugo. And this is another guy like 19 and 9, almost 30 professional fights.
Insane.
And, high level guy.
Yeah.
I think a guy from Mexico. And another great show. We're in the Des Moines, Iowa at this time. I think at the Wells Fargo Arena, just as
Okay.
big of an arena as the UFC would use. Great
Wow.
hotel. Hotel's connected to the arena. So I got a tough fight. Semifinals. If you win, you go to the finals.
Right.
I go out there and I win this fight by second round knockout. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to the finals, and the finals is supposed to be paying like $25,000 if you win. Not only
Okay.
that, they're giving bonuses for knockout of the night, and you get like I think it was a $2,500 bonus, but you got like 10,000 shares of the company, which
Okay.
at the time was only worth like 15 cents. But in your mind,
Mhm.
you're thinking, man, hopefully this shit grows if I
Right.
got that many shares. And next thing you know, boom,
You find out
organization goes
done.
back, goes
Oh,
That
bankrupt,
sounds. Do you think
withdrawals.
that like it's UFC kind of like stifling that growth too because they kind of have like a monopoly on the whole thing, but like
Yeah,
more competition would be better.
no, for sure. And don't get me wrong, XFC is not competition to the UFC one bit.
Okay.
Not even close. You know,
right.
XFC is more of a feeder to the UFC,
Mhm.
and a lot of these organizations like the XFC, if the UFC comes and says, "Hey, we want you to come fight next week," they're going to let you out the contract. And that was one of the cool things about Titan back in the day is they had a UFC out
Hmm.
clause. Yeah, they might sign you to a 4 fight deal, But if the UFC comes calling and said, "Hey, we got a shot for you," UFC will let you have the contract right then and there.
Right. Right.
So, and that's a lot of these, little bit lower promotions like LFA and Titan and XFC. A lot of those, they're not going to hold you if the UFC wants you.
Right. Yeah. It'd almost be
So,
silly to do that. And so that leaves us with you, the organization's out. It was like, where do I go from here? And sort of walk through, like, I think more of the what's been going on mentally and with your life set between then and what lands you on the show now. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. So, I'm expecting to, fight in this finals. I already have an opponent. Um,
Yeah.
so my opponent gets hurt pretty bad and pulls out. So they're like, well, we'll postpone the fight. So they postpone the fight. Next thing you know, they go under, and then XFC's no more. So I'm
Right.
like, all right. My manager Brian with Sucker Punch hits me up, and he's like, hey, got you a deal with Eagle FC, and this is right when Khabib was just starting his Eagle FC
Yeah.
platform, and they're paying UFC money. I think they're paying 10 and 10 to start out. So
Ooh.
that's what the UFC starts out. 10,000 to show,
Right.
10,000 to win. So I'm like,
Right.
I'm on board. Let's go. Give me a place to fight. Didn't get a fight. Didn't get a fight. Didn't get a fight. So I'm like, and right when, like I said, I mentioned earlier, they gave me Rose name, and I was all in for it at the time, and then that
Mm-hmm.
fight never happened. So I'm like, damn, man, I'm just never gonna get the fight. And at the time, I'm thinking about, will I ever fight again? Because then XFC, I hear they're not gonna do any more shows. You got Islam Makhachev fighting for the title at the time, so I heard
Wow.
that they weren't doing any shows because they're so focused on him. And right when I'm thinking about it's going on about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I'm like, man, if I do fight, can I do what I did in the last fight? Or is time going to catch me? I'm starting to get a little bit older. I don't want to be the guy that thinks he can still fight at that high level and has to find out the hard way that he can't.
Right.
So that's all going through my head. And then, my manager hits me up one day and he said, hey, I sent you, um, what do you call it? A um, application for the next season of Ultimate Fighter. And I'm like,
Wow.
really? Like, I don't know if I even want to be the Ultimate Fighter. I run, I have two gyms, I have a wife, I have my kids, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do that. And after talking to my wife, my kids, and my teammates, they were like, my wife and kids, they were like, why would you not take this? This is awesome. Like, take it.
Right.
And then
They're like, go, come on.
where it goes, man. Where it goes, it might work
And
out
you're
good.
like,
So
this
I'm like,
shit's hard.
Yeah.
like it's fucking very stressful. And yeah,
yeah.
it's hard.
So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So I fill out the application. My manager hit me back and said, hey, you got an interview in like 2 days with the producers. So I do the interview, and then everything seemed like it went good. And I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, did it go good? Like, I'm kind of getting at this point to where I'm like, I'm kind of wanting to do it now. Like, I'm all
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
This is starting to sound good. I'm starting to tell people, yeah, man, I might be on the next season of Ultimate Fighter, and they're freaking out. And then here you go. My manager hits me up one day and says, "You're in." That's what he sent me.
Bruh.
That you're in. I'm like, oh shit. He's like, pack your bags. You're probably leaving Saturday, which was in like
Oh,
2 days. So my wife starts crying. She's like, oh my god, this is really happening. And here we go, man. Pack my bags, fly out to Las Vegas, and I'm on the show.
bro. And here we are. And here we are. And we're going to be talking
Third
about the
chance.
show. Let's go. Third time's a charm, man. Who cares?
Third
Let's
time's the
go.
charm, man. Trying to make things happen.
I love it. And here we
If
are.
not
And
you,
again,
then who?
yeah, exactly. If not you, then who? I love that. Nine. We need that on a shirt for Kurt. Yeah. But yeah, here we are. And hopefully, Kurt, we can have you on week by week and sort of break everything down as it goes on. I think that would be fun. And I think if anybody had questions and follows Ultimate Fighter week by week, like they come on, ask some questions about what happened on the episode. But it's such a I don't want to say Cinderella story, but it's one of those stories you see in a movie and you're like, bro, this dude's got the third time. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and he's on a show that could get him. Like, you can't write this better in Hollywood, is all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. And like I said, man, I don't know if anybody's ever been back to the UFC for a third time, you know, but hopefully that's good. What does that say about me if the UFC is going to give me a third chance,
Right.
And but that probably goes back to my resume too. You go back and you look at the guys that I fought, and you're like, damn, you know, this guy fought Isaiah Makachev. This guy just signed a huge deal. All the guys that I fought are like at one point in time got ranked in the top 15, top 10. They're co-headlining shows and never had my ass whooped. There's always a good fight. My first fight was a fight of the night performance. Second fight,
Right.
I dropped Shane Burgos and was on my way. You know, I beat myself. I screwed up in that fight and got caught in armbar. In the third fight, I went to Brazil and fought a tough guy in Thiago Moises, which was
Right.
um, a one-sided fight. He was able to control it. He definitely won the fight, but once again, didn't really get my ass whooped. I had some decent moments here and there in that fight. It was just couldn't get the job done.
Yeah.
But here we are,
Which,
third time's the charm, and you know, July 4th,
There's the charm.
we're gonna see if I can
ish.
overcome.
I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
Independence
Yeah.
Day. Okay.
Kurt said it. Kurt said that's the only fireworks you need is on TV when he's fighting. So
Hell yeah.
we're waiting for it. Kurt, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, taking some time, man. And again, it's been a long time since we got together. So I'm just so happy we could sort of reunited and it feels so good. So Kurt, let people know, take over the show. You know how this goes, man. You take over the show. Let people know where they can find you if they want to reach out to you, anything like that. The floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, on Instagram, Kurt.Holobaugh, K.Holobaugh. You'll be able to find me. Same thing with Facebook, Twitter. I use my real name for everything. It's either going to be Kurt
Mhm.
Holobaugh, K.Holobaugh. Go give me a follow, check me out. Of course, got to thank my sponsors.
Mhm.
Covington Power Sports, good friend of mine, good sponsor, always riding with me. Thank you guys. Creole Tomato, K-Ray Construction. Thank all you guys have been there since day one, no matter what happens. So, sometimes it'll be hard to do things without you guys.
For sure. Shout outs to everybody, and everybody go follow Kurt on any social media
Yeah, man, I'm
platform.
trying to get that damn blue check mark by my name.
Let's help this man get verified. Let's go. Let's go get him verified. Come on.
You
It's
know,
crazy.
you know they only want you to pay for that now.
I
Elon's
know.
like,
That's
cut
the
the
thing.
check for
There
me.
it is. You got to pay for it. And I'm like, I don't want it that bad.
Nah,
I don't really care. I'm
nah,
not going to pay for it.
nah.
Right.
It's not worth it.
And what's crazy is I was verified on Twitter, but I'm just not active on Twitter, I guess. And now I'm not
They took,
verified no more. So I'm like,
They
they
took
took,
it
that sucks.
away?
they took you
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
That is bullshit.
I'm
That's
like, damn, man.
bullshit.
I got to bounce back, man. I got to win the Ultimate Fighter now to get verified.
I'm fighting for this blue check.
I'm fighting for the blue check. Yeah. I love it. Everybody go follow Kurt so we can get this man verified in the streets. And follow us every week as we break down Ultimate Fighter week by week. Follow us here at 9 Nerd Yards. We're also breaking down The Idol. We'll probably be breaking down other shows and movies. Secret Invasion's coming out. So y'all stay tuned for that if y'all are Marvel heads or anything like that. But Kurt, been an absolute pleasure. Everybody out there in the comments, thank y'all so much for commenting, taking the time, whether you're watching this morning, evening, afternoon. We do appreciate you. And until the next time, we will see you. Peace.